12 haunting facts about the Titanic. Number 1. In 1898, 14 years before the actual HMS Titanic tragedy, an American author wrote a novel called Futility. Morgan Robertson's, the author's novel, was about a British cruise ship named the Titan. The Titan set sail on her maiden voyage in April. As the storyline goes, the ship struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank, going down with the passengers and crew members. The tragic similarities to the actual events are astonishing and creepy. The HMS Titanic sank in the very early hours of April 15, 1912. In the icy and iceberg-filled waters of the North Atlantic, the fabulous brand new ship had been proclaimed to be virtually unsinkable by her designers, engineers, and builders. The Titanic had begun her maiden voyage at noon on April 12, 1912, on her way to New York City from Southampton, England. Number 2. The Titanic had been constructed at the Harland and Wolff Shipbuilders in Belfast, Northern Ireland, for the White Star line of cruise ships. She and her sister ship, the Olympic, were designed to be the premier luxury cruise ships. The target customers and passengers for the Titanic and Olympic were to be the elite and the wealthiest of the world. The Titanic sister ship, the Olympic, was completed and began sailing before the Titanic. The Olympic's maiden voyage was June of 1911. On September 20th, 1911, the Olympic collided with the Royal Navy ship Hawke, which caused significant structural damage to the Olympic. The amount of damage caused from the collision resulted in delay for the completion of Titanic, as materials were diverted from Titanic to repair the Olympic. The captain on the bridge of the Olympic during the incident was Edward J. Smith. He is more famously remembered as the first and only captain of the Titanic. Number 3. The Titanic sailed from the Belfast shipyards on April 2, 1912, and arrived in Southampton on April 3, 1912. This tight schedule left just 7 days to prepare the ship and the crew to be able to set sail for America. The biggest, most elegant cruise ship up to that moment required much planning. As the preparations and training were being conducted prior to the arrival of passengers, Captain Smith canceled the lifeboat emergency training for the crew without explanation. The training was never rescheduled and never conducted. During the emergency following the impact with the iceberg was the first time the crew had even tried to deploy the lifeboats. Number 4. The Titanic's total people capacity was 3,547 souls. The 18 lifeboats on board the ship had a seating capacity for 65 persons each, which were not enough. There was not enough seating space on the lifeboats for even half of the ship's capacity. The seating capacity available in the number of lifeboats on board the Titanic was for 1,178 souls. Number 5. It has been discovered through the government inquiries and historical investigations that over half of the lifeboats were only about half full. The first lifeboat launched into the Atlantic only had 28 souls on board. If all of the lifeboats had been full, 1,178 souls would have survived. The facts say that only 706 people of the 2,223 people on board the ship survived the sinking. Number 6. Over the last century of the Titanic's lore, many historical documentaries, science explorations, investigations, and motion pictures into and about the ship have been made. The purported causes of her sinking and the backstory on her passengers have made the tragedy much more mysterious and famous. To date, there has been only one cruise liner that has ever been sunk by colliding with an iceberg, the HMS Titanic. No wonder it is so famously remembered, discussed, and explored. Number 7. Though Captain Smith had a history of having navigational problems as a ship captain and questionable decision-making in his role, he was not found negligent by the British government's inquiry. A separate inquiry by the United States government, conducted because of the number of Americans who died in the tragedy, blamed Captain Smith for the tragedy. The U.S. inquiry revealed that Captain Smith's indifferent reactions to the iceberg warnings showed a behavior that was negligent and dangerous. Number 8. After the Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, the wreckage and missing passengers remained buried in the watery grave of the Atlantic until September of 1985. On September 1, 1985, a joint French-American exploration searching for the Titanic wreckage was successful and began to lead the way in discovery for the truth. Number 9. In part due to a long-held superstition of the seas, that women on board a ship bring bad luck, only 18 members in the crew of 900 were women. Of those 18 female crew members, 17 were rescued via lifeboats on board. Number 10. As mentioned, the Titanic was built for the first-class traveler. A stateroom on the ship which included 2 dressing rooms, 2 bedrooms, a private bathroom, a sitting room, and a private deck for a fare of $4,200. In today's dollars, that would be nearly $102,000, according to the United States Federal Reserve calculator. Number 11. There were more than first-class passengers aboard the ill-fated ship. In fact, over half the passengers were third-class passengers, also known as steerage passengers. The cost of a third-class ticket was roughly $36, or $875 today. These passengers were mostly immigrants headed to America for a new start in the newer, brighter world across the Atlantic. Number 12. The Titanic cost $7.5 million to build in 1911 and 1912. In today's dollars, that would amount to almost $170 million. In 1997, the movie Titanic cost more than $200 million to make, or nearly $300 million today. No matter how you perform your compilation, the movie costs more to make than the actual ship. By the way, the movie made over $1.8 billion at the box office. Subscribe for more.